When Tumblr becomes a physical representation of a band, I'd have to imagine it's The Neighbourhood. The year is 2013, black and white bands are the coolest in the world, and Jesse Rutherford just so happens to have the slick, edgy outcast persona on lockdown. Tumblr and SoundCloud fandom led to millions of sales, streams, sold-out tours, and a record deal with Columbia, who clearly saw dollar signs the moment this leather-clad gang walked through their doors. In 2013, I was 100% in my edgy black and white phase, and when I Love You came out, I was 21, single, and freshly rejected, so it was like showing a bong to a stoner. Now that it's somehow been a full decade since my initial review where I spent most of the runtime praising them, my thoughts have changed. Considerably. This has always been in the back of my mind for I Got It Wrong, since this is a safe space for admitting fault, bias, or changing opinions, so let's take a tour of The Neighbourhood's debut album, along with a look back at my original review. Hey neighbor, you already know what show you're watching, and if you're wondering what's going on with my hair, I wish I could tell you, other than the fact that my barber permanently closed without telling me. While this album still seems to have fans fainting at the mere thought of it, critics were more vicious, much more vicious to I Love You, collectively spanking it with a 48 out of 100. Singles like Female Robbery and the now iconic Sweater Weather charted well, as they utilized a blend of natural hype and social media fame to blast their sound over the airwaves. You know, fun fact, this was actually the first album I was ever given early access to by a record label, which was a huge deal for me in 2013. I ended up treasuring I Love You for its rich atmosphere, and I named it my 5th favorite album of 2013?
Speaking of loving things, it's I Love You by The Neighbourhood at number 5. This whole album has really been on repeat lately, honestly. The whole thing just feels like a journey.
That was shocking to see, to go from adoring this as a top 5 record to seeing through its smoke and mirrors game by the time Wiped Out came around in 2015. That's next level 180 tail whip shit.
I love this style of this band. They can take something sometimes singing about upbeat and make it really dark, and they can just add this atmosphere to pretty much any track.
Jesus Christ, John, so easily impressed.
What's different about this band though? What sets them apart? Well, besides the fact that they make these really black and white and artful music videos that just are really dark and very interesting and mysterious.
Artful. Okay, yeah, we'll go with that. But pray tell, what else makes them unique, young John?
It's the fact that the band doesn't necessarily focus on themselves. For the longest time, they didn't actually reveal the band members' names.
Dude, less than 2 years of being a band, they'd revealed everything, but sure, the longest time. They're so edgy and mysterious, and I'm just mad because I was hooked on The Neighbourhood's phonics.
This is one of those albums that needs to be played loudly. You're gonna want to hear like every little drum clap in the background. The layered guitars, everything is just so thickly layered, and it just sounds so cool. That's what makes The Neighbourhood The Neighbourhood.
Reverb. They wash out all of their songs in it as if heavy reverb is a personality trait. It's excessive, and the little atmospheric cues and samples make it hard to tell one song apart from the next sometimes. The distant, foggy atmosphere manspreads across 11 tracks that have shockingly little substance for as many times as Rutherford circles the drain on these yawn-worthy subjects. His lyrics are borderline creepy, not just because of one song like the awful Daddy Issues. It's written all over the subtext of I Love You. Easy-to-solve riddles are soundtracked by airy drum claps, swoony electronics, reverberating guitars, and boomy bass hits, some of which haven't aged well because of how dated and formulaic they feel. Atmospheric pressure changes don't happen frequently enough. I do still like the way they approach navigating the darkness, but I can feel it slipping away more and more over time thanks to the lack of sincerity at the heart of it all. I may sound like I'm about to bring down the hand of God on the neighborhood, but I have a soft spot for a good chunk of the track list despite everything I just said.
Lead singer Jesse Rutherford has an excellent voice. I love the way that it fits these songs so perfectly. I feel like they really tweaked and mastered these things to fit his voice so perfectly.
Hard agree. Jesse's voice was made to surf the waters under dark skies, and that's exactly what makes them tick, even if he's a lousy lyricist blindfolded behind the mic throwing paint at a canvas. There's a pretty unique flow and rhythm to I Love You that I haven't seen too many artists replicate this smoothly. Operating under cover of darkness is an identity for them. Think like a 19-year-old with a fake ID at the club, but it's dark out and the bouncer just kind of assumes it's you, fake it till you make it. Zach Abels and Jeremy Friedman shine brightest here, as their two guitarists clearly have a chemical bond, making the vibe much more palatable, redirecting watery landscapes like a dam, so quite literally the album's backbone. You'll find the band chilling out on the power lines like vultures overlooking a gloomy cityscape, waiting to swoop in to whisper questions without answers in your ear as tracks like House set up an existential crisis, or Alleyways looks for the fountain of youth to no avail.
Inquisitive lyrics that actually make the listener think. I love it. Overall, my favorites are Sweater Weather, Let It Go, Female Robbery, What Do You Want From Me, Alleyways, Everybody's Watching Me.
Excuse me, Past John, I'm gonna let you finish, but this was not one of the best albums of all time, so maybe slow down on the CVS receipt of favorites there. How kicks off I Love You like a foggy exterior shot slowly zooming in. It's effectively chilling, maybe not entirely in the way they intended, but it's a really solid start. Afraid battles paranoia in a distracting manner, and I say that not because it's a bad song, it's misguided and repetitive, and The Drain is circled for the first of many times on an album that's big on atmosphere and low on fresh ideas. Everybody's Watching Me continues the theme without adding much aside from some simple rhymes and some standout bass, but then we get to the massive diamond-certified turning point Sweater Weather. Sweater Weather effortlessly cycles through shades of cool as the California air sets the scene for a tangled affair. The spikes of mellow guitar remind me a bit of Band of Horses, and they're paired up with some innocuous drums and rapid-fire releases of words that feels like more time was given to them for once. Let It Go was a huge favorite, but I've soured on it a bit. On the other side of the coin, Alleyways features a brooding bass that cohabitates a sizzling, choppy guitar, as Jesse reflects on his childhood from this vantage point that releases some of the tension, and they'd been building that tension, and this was a much-needed head-above-water moment. What Do You Want From Me beats around the bush in a monotonous showing way too similar to Everybody's Watching Me, fading quickly from my memory as we go into the next track flawless. The eye roll factor is upped just a bit as the frontman wrestles with the idea of leaving a girl he once thought was perfect, but I guess he didn't watch Hannah Montana because nobody's perfect, all that glitters ain't gold, and here he dances with doubt to keep the thoughts of a crumbling relationship from creeping into his mind. Female Robbery was one of the first tracks they ever put out, and I think it's really solid. The chorus is cheesy, and I don't really think the crime scene that they're selling is as interesting as they think it is, but the sampling works in their favor, and I really like the guitars, really fine-tuning the atmospheric pressure. Staying Up takes off with a compelling hook, but fails to launch with those drab verses. We get it, you lead the life of a sleazy nightcrawler in California. Finally, we arrive at Float to close out the album. It's a glimpse into self-esteem issues with some of the best writing on I Love You, and I love how chunky the bass sounds with that back half adding in some genuinely pretty backing vocals. I'm walking away knowing that I still really like some of the songs. Others, not so much, but overall, I Love You is probably their best work, even though I'm probably the last person Neighborhood fans are looking to for takes on their discography.
I wish this band nothing but success one of the most impressive debut albums I've heard in the past few years. It's a 4.5 out of 5 from me.
This album really must have touched down in a perfect storm in my life because I can still vividly feel how I used to feel in that first week of listening. But a near perfect score? It's a solid time capsule, but kinda like digging up your buried treasure. Maybe you and your class went out in middle or high school and buried something out behind the school. It's not as cool as you thought it was back then. Call me Mad Money, because I'm downgrading my score from a 4.5 to a 3 out of 5. Has I Love You held up or sank? Take to the comments, let me know your thoughts. Also, maybe hit that like button, and remember, this was just my opinion, and you can see more of I Got It Wrong above me here. Become a member below to help support the content, and follow me on Instagram at ARTVJohn for more.